Now, once a week, we explore vocabulary and a specific type of vocabulary. I have found, working with various students from various countries, that when they are learning English, when they're first starting, they tend to use the adjective good a lot for everything, to describe everything in a positive way. Well, good is too subjective to have any meaning. What you think is good may be different from what I think is good. So it's kind of a useless word, really, unless we're sharing a context together. So every week, I'd like to introduce a new word that you can use instead of good. So this segment is okay. And today's word is remarkable. Okay, so this is an adjective, and it means unusual or surprising in a way that causes people to notice. So something, it's describing a thing, a person, a place, an object, maybe even an idea. It's describing a noun, which is what adjectives do. And this thing that you're describing is unusual or surprising in a way that causes people to notice. So I'm going to give you an example on the board here. My example is going to be, I saw a remarkable tree. Okay, tree is my noun. Remarkable is the adjective. I saw a remarkable tree. I was walking through the forest and I looked up and I saw, of course, I saw thousands of trees, but one tree made me notice. It had a very strange shape. It was a remarkable tree. I remarked it. I noticed it. It surprised me. Okay? That's one way to use it. You can also use it as a compliment. For example, she is remarkable. Okay, that person is remarkable. They are unusual or surprising in some way, whether it's their appearance, or it could be their actions, their behavior, their talent. For example, if you've watched the Olympics recently, you probably saw some athletes and said, wow, she is remarkable. Okay, now I want you guys to practice with this adjective. In the comment box, I want you to try using this in a sentence, okay? Now it's an adjective, so it has to describe a noun or used as a complement, which describes the subject noun. Write me a sentence and we'll put them up and see how they look. In the meantime, I'll say hello to Ohidul Islam from Singapore, originally from Bangladesh. We have Swayan Kumar from Bangladesh. We have Maria Cristina from Brazil. We have Rosangela from Brazil. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you all here. So guys, we're just doing our vocabulary segment. I'd like you all to try using this adjective in a sentence. My two examples are here. I saw a remarkable tree, or she is remarkable. So let's see your example. Chris has one. Chris says, our conversation cafe is remarkable. People from all over the world are becoming friends. Yes, it is. Great. Tirith says, this is a remarkable show. That's a good sentence. Let's see what else we have. We have Marco Perez joining us. He says, your car is remarkable. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of cars out there. We see cars every day. But sometimes you see a particular car that's really surprising or unusual, and you call it remarkable. Ohidul says, I found a remarkable and favorite teacher after a long time who teaches people online. I enjoy your classes all the time. Okay, excellent sentence. And if that's your true feelings, thank you. What else do we have? Sometimes I'm not sure if you're just making a practice sentence or if that's an actual compliment for me. Either way, excellent work. Professor Wilson says, I listened to a remarkable CD last week. Great. Wilson listens to CDs. So he's probably like my age. Marco says, the mountain is very remarkable. This is a good sentence, Marco, but I'm going to tell you something, a little secret. That extra word, very, you don't need it. If something's remarkable, it's already very remarkable. It's already unusual. This extra word, very, it doesn't add any meaning, especially in writing. We often say very in speech, like, oh my God, it was a very delicious dinner. But an adjective already has a meaning, and remarkable is a strong meaning. So adding very doesn't really change it. It's an extra word you don't need. So I actually encourage all of my students, never use very. Your writing will be clearer and more punchy, more powerful. If you don't use very, you don't use really, these are kind of garbage words that have no extra meaning. Pick a good adjective and it carries a lot of meaning. So it's better just to say, the mountain is remarkable. Ohidul says, don't forget that the way you explain a new topic is undoubtedly remarkable. Great sentence. Great sentence. What else do we have here, guys? Let's see. Ah, you're welcome, Marco. Yeah, it's a little tip. It's not wrong to use very, right? It's not ungrammatical. But in terms of meaning, expression, it's extra. And Marco, maybe you like meat. Maybe you like barbecue meat, right? Nice steak, maybe. Very delicious. Very delicious. If you put too much pepper on it, it doesn't taste good. You can't taste the steak anymore. It loses its meaning. It's the same with language. If you sprinkle too many extra words that you don't need, your idea is lost. It's buried under the salt and pepper. It's better to choose good words and let them stand alone with power. Very is like pepper. Too much extra words, too many extra words doesn't help your meaning. Chris says his courage was remarkable. And joining the show is Maki Maki. Welcome to the show, Maki Maki. What country are you watching from, Maki Maki? I'm not sure what your comment says. Sharawat Po. Ohidul says, wow, the water of the glass gives a remarkable color. Absolutely. Great. Great sentences, guys. Excellent work. Maki Maki is in the Philippines. Welcome to the show. It's great to have the Philippines with us. I'm just going to clear the board with my magic spray and get ready to answer a question. Anyone else want to try another sentence? Using remarkable. Let's see. Okay. That's all right. No new sentence. We've already had some excellent ones. Okay. Oidul says, after a long what? After a long time? Long is an adjective that needs a noun, so get a noun after that, long. After a long time, we friends got together last night at a dinner party. The foods we chose from the menu were remarkable. Right? Remarkable, amazing. Surprised you. They were unusual. And they caused you to take notice. Great. Excellent work, guys. Yeah. Okay, guys. Let's say goodbye to our word to use instead of good of the day. Remarkable. Okay. Now let's go to our first question. Now this is outstanding from a previous show. I didn't explain it on that show. I think it was last week. I believe it was my friend Roni from Bangladesh who asked this question. It was an excellent question. The problem was the answer is not short, and he asked it towards the end of the show. And I said, oh, we have one more sentence coming in from Swayen. Swayen says, your Conversation Cafe is a remarkable program which helps me a lot to improve English. I really enjoy it. I'm also your Conversation Cafe's member. You know me as Shoyen Kumar. Yes. Okay, so that's the better way to say your name, Shoyen. Yes. Thank you for joining the Conversation Cafe, Shoyen, and promoting it. Okay, back to what I was saying. My friend Roni, I think it was Roni, maybe it was Nadim, I can't remember. One of our friends from Bangladesh asked this question. And he asked it at near the end of the show, so there was no time to answer it. And the answer is going to be a bit long. So bear with me, guys. If you have other questions, hold on to them until maybe the halfway point of the show, okay? So the question he asked was, we'll have it, let's look at the captions, yeah, the first one. The question was, what is parallelism? Right? What is parallelism? And the answer is not simple, so it's going to take me a few minutes to go through this. Okay, what is parallelism? Well, the answer to this question is parallelism is not exactly like a grammar rule, okay? And it's more or less an advanced technique. But what it does is it improves your expressions by making it more balanced, more clear, and more elegant. And by elegant, I mean sounds better, looks better. It almost becomes poetic. So, guys, when you're learning a new language, of course, you're focused on the basics, the rules, the grammar. And then later, you're focused on expanding your ideas with complexity and vocabulary. But at the highest levels of a language are things like figurative language, metaphor, simile, things that are used in literature, things that are used in music lyrics, things that are used in poetry. This is really the highest level of a language because it's very creative, very flexible, and it offers a secondary meaning that isn't clear just from the words. Okay? That's why it's confusing if you're new to a language. It's very confusing. You've learned to read the words literally and understand the meaning exactly what it says. But figurative language offers a secondary meaning. And if you can work with this at this level, what happens is a language offers its beauty. It's not just clear, doesn't just express an idea, it expresses an idea beautifully. And it's true for all languages. There's no one language that you can say is more beautiful than another. It's just about how you can express it. I've heard it from students before saying things like, oh, my language, Spanish, is so much more beautiful than English. Well, maybe because you can understand it at a high level, and you can use it at a high level, and you can read your great poets and literary writers at the highest level. And you can't understand English at that level, so you think, all this baby talk I hear in English isn't very beautiful. Well, when you can understand English at the figurative level, at the most poetic level, it's beautiful too. What I'm going to talk about today is parallelism. And parallelism is not figurative necessarily, but it's a way of organizing your ideas in a balanced and elegant way to make your expressions clearer, more balanced, and more pleasing to the eye and ear when you read them. Okay, now there are 5 different patterns. Can we bring that graphic up? That mysterious one? Yeah. There are 5 different patterns. These are not grammar rules. Your sentence can be grammatical, but be not parallel. Okay? What we're talking about is parallelism makes your sentence structures more clear, more balanced, and more elegant. And there are 5 different patterns to look at. So let's look at the first one, across conjunctions. So let's clear that off. I'm going to show you an example that is what we call faulty parallelism. Okay, so this sentence is grammatically correct. Okay, it's good grammar. We have a subject and a conjunction that joins another subject. And then over here we have a verb and an adjective. So we are joining two subjects with a conjunction. The problem is these two subjects are not the same form. They are not parallel. Here we have a noun, right? A simple noun, idea. Then we have and the conjunction acts like a little seesaw, or if you're an engineer, a fulcrum. And on both sides, we want parallel structures. We want the same grammar form. So if we have a noun here, we want a noun here. Now, what we don't have a noun here, we have a gerund, which works like a noun, being understood. It's working like a noun. It can be a subject. So this is okay grammar, but it's not parallel. There's a better way of saying this. So your idea, and it's being understood. Well, what's another way of saying that with one word? So if you have an idea and you want people to understand it, what you want is, let's say, your idea and it's, why don't we say reception? Reception is a noun. So we have a noun and a noun are nice. Okay, that's just one simple example. Sometimes we might see this too. Your idea and what you want to do with it are nice. So now we have our noun, subject, and so we want a double subject, but now we have a whole clause. You want, that's a clause, subject, verb. What you want to do with it are nice. So we have a noun, and then we have a clause. That's out of balance. Those are not the same forms. So what's a noun way to say what you want to do with it? Well, how about the word plan? How about your idea and plan? So now we have a noun and a noun. Your idea and plan are nice. That's good parallelism. And listen to how much better that sounds. Your idea and what you want to do with it are nice. It creates a rocky rhythm. However, your idea and plan are nice. There's a rhythm there. Your idea and plan are nice. It doesn't have to be short words, but we want noun and noun. So that's when you're using a conjunction, okay? It doesn't have to be a conjunction that joins subjects. It could join objects. It could be like, I like, okay, subject, verb, and then we have an object. I like pizza and to eat sushi. Okay, so we have a noun and we have an infinitive verb. We don't want that. To eat sushi. Well, there's a really easy way to fix that. I like pizza and sushi. Now we have good balance. We have the same forms. We have a noun and we have a noun. Pizza and sushi, two types of food. Okay? So don't use a noun and then infinitive verb. That's out of balance. It's not parallel. Okay? Let's bring that graphic back up. The second type of pattern is when we have elements that are in a list or a series. If they're in a list, we want them to be parallel. We want the same forms. So the same idea applies. When you have two elements across conjunctions, they should be in the same form. They don't have to be nouns. That was just my example. There could be two verbs. There could be two gerunds, right? Or they could be two infinitives, but we want that balance. So number 2, in lists or a series. Okay, let's try one of these. I like many foods, such as pizza, eating sushi, and to go for a steak. Okay, so there's our list, right? I like many foods. Okay, well, give me an example. Here's an example. Pizza, eating sushi, and to go for a steak. The problem is this list is not parallel. They're all 3 different forms. Here we have a noun, pizza. Eating sushi, that's a gerund structure. Okay, and we have and. Actually, I'm going to put a comma there. And to go for a steak. To go, that's an infinitive verb structure. So we have no balance here. We are not parallel. This is called faulty or flawed parallelism. And we want parallelism. Okay, now how do you decide what goes over here? Because you could have all 3, if all 3 have to be the same form, they could be all infinitives. They could all 3 be gerunds. So how do you choose? Here's how you choose. Go back to the main idea. I like many foods. These are all examples of foods. Okay? What kind of word is foods? Well, foods is a noun. And if you're going to give examples of the noun, they should be in noun form. Right? What if I said, I like to do many things? To do is not a noun. To do is an infinitive verb. So our list should be infinitive verbs. So it's possible to choose anything as long as they're parallel. So I like many foods. We need a noun list. Well, we have pizza. That's good. Eating sushi? No, we want sushi. Sushi is a noun. Pizza, sushi, and to go for a steak? Pizza, sushi, and steak. 3 nouns. Why nouns? Because food's a noun. If you're going to give me a list of things you like to do, actions you like to do, then your list should be infinitive verbs, like I like to do many things, such as to eat pizza, to eat sushi, and to go for a steak. Now the list is parallel, and it's chosen as an infinitive because it matches the thing it's exemplifying. Okay, let me clear the board and go to number 3, pattern. Okay, get the graphic up, please. Number 3, pattern number 3, with compared elements. Okay, so when you're making a comparison, guys, we want to be parallel. For example, I enjoy swimming more than to dive. Right? Okay, we're comparing swimming and to dive. Well, swimming is a gerund structure. Okay, ing form, acting as a noun, right? So it's the object of the sentence. But then over here, what do we have? We have infinitive structure. So we have faulty parallelism. We are comparing 2 things that you enjoy, one more than the other, but they should be parallel. Okay, and they're not. So how do we fix it? We have to change one of them. Now, enjoy is a verb that can use gerunds or infinitives. Is it? Actually, no. Enjoy is a verb that has to work with a noun. Because it's transitive, it needs a direct object. So swimming can be a direct object because it operates as a noun. We could put a noun there too, like I enjoy pizza. But that's an infinitive verb. It's not even a noun, it's a verb. So that's no good. That one's going to have to change. Well, let's use the gerund form of to dive. Diving. Now we have gerund and gerund. I enjoy swimming more than diving. Or if we want to just straight up nouns, I enjoy pizza more than steak. Okay, two nouns. Okay. Now, if we change the verb, I like. Well, like is a verb that can have a gerund or an infinitive. So we could say, I like to swim more than to dive. Okay, two infinitives. That's good parallelism. And so is that. You start to get the idea, guys, right? It doesn't really matter sometimes what the choice is. What's important is that it's balanced. We have the same form working. Okay, so that's number 3 pattern. Let's go to number 4. Elements joined by linking or state verbs. Okay. Do you guys know your linking verbs, such as be? Be verb is a linking verb. Another verb might be something like seems. He seems happy. So let's see what we can do here. What if we said, to live is awesome. Okay, what do we have here? We have an infinitive structure, to live. Here is our linking verb, be verb. And in this kind of structure, I want you to think of the be verb as the fulcrum, or the pivot, or the hinge, the point that the balance happens across. So we have an infinitive here, and we have awesome, which is an adjective. These are not parallel because they're not the same part of speech. So we have to change this into an adjective, or we have to change this into an infinitive. Well, we don't want to start a sentence with an adjective. That would be awfully strange. So let's say, to live is to dream. Okay, now we have infinitive linked, right? Linking verb to another infinitive. Okay? To live is to dream. Okay, now what if we did a different structure, something like to succeed is opening a store. Let's say that's your dream, to open a store. So you have to succeed is opening a store. Infinitive, and now we have a gerund structure. That's not parallel. So we could probably say something like to succeed is to open a store. Now, just for the sake of meaning, I think it's probably better if they were the other way around. To open a store is to succeed. So doing that action is success, right? So this is parallelism, guys, across a be verb, a linking verb. So this is parallelism. And you can see the difference here. To succeed is opening a store. There's a strange rhythm there. It's awkward. And sometimes it's not clear what you're emphasizing, right? But to succeed is to open a store. To open a store is to succeed. to teach learners around the world is to succeed for me, right? That creates balance and it makes your emphasis clear. And it's elegant because it sounds smoother. We have the same pattern. There's a rhythm, a repetition. Okay? Let's look at pattern number 5. And this one may be the most complex because it deals with something we call correlative conjunctions. Now, earlier I showed you a basic conjunction, but or and. Correlative conjunctions join two elements. Let me think of an example. Well, my marker is getting faded, so I'm going to put that to sleep. Get a fresh one. Okay, Paul. You see that? Yeah, that's better. Paul not only wants to teach, but also okay. So this is a correlative conjunction. Not only, but also. Usually has two parts. Not only, but also. Both and. What's another one? I'm drawing a blank here. Either or, neither nor. Those are all correlative conjunctions. They're like pairs. They work together. And what do? They correlate one idea with another idea. They put them together. And they can be single words or they can be a full clause. What do we have here? Paul not only wants to teach, that's our first structure. And we have a verb and then an infinitive. So that's our structure. That's the first step in the pattern. But also, and then we have the second structure. Now we have a whole different structure. We have learning new languages. That's the subject. We have the verb, and then we have the object, is his hobby. Learning new languages is his hobby. Well, that's a different structure than just verb infinitive. So we have faulty parallelism. Let's fix it. Paul not only wants to teach, but also wants to teach, but also wants to learn. And we can add stuff, but we want that same basic structure. Okay? Wants to teach, but also wants to learn new languages. Paul not only wants to teach, but also wants to learn new languages. Okay? So that's when you're using not only, but also. The two things that you put together, the two elements, need to be parallel in order to make an elegant, balanced, and clear sentence. Right? Guys, that's a really basic summary of parallelism. 5 different patterns that we need to think about. I don't want to spend the whole show talking about parallelism, but let's see if you have any questions about it. In the meantime, I'm going to quickly clear my board. Do you have any questions about parallelism? Or if you want to give me any examples that we can try. Maybe an example with faulty parallelism and we can clean it up. Okay. Maybe I've missed some folks joining the show. Louisa's with us. Thank you for joining, Louisa. We also have Berta with us. Who else is? Tapan is with us. Garrett Lem is with us. Hi, Garrett. Okay, let's go back and have a look at some of the comments here. We have a comment from Tapan. Let's put this one up. Tapan Chandra says, flying kites is his favorite hobby. Here, flying kites is. Flying kites is the subject, right? It's a gerund subject. Flying is the gerund. It's acting as the subject of your sentence. Flying kites, that's your complete idea. Flying kites is his favorite hobby. That's like saying pizza is his favorite food, right? Flying kites is your subject. Okay. Oh, we have Katongo with us. Thank you for joining the show, Katongo. Let's see what Berta says. Berta is saying, are those unparalleled structure making the whole sentence grammatically? Okay, this is really the issue. Berta's asking, are these ungrammatical sentences still okay grammar, right? Well, the answer is yes. As I said earlier, this is not necessarily a question of grammar. It's a question of beauty. It's a question of aesthetics. It's a question of elegance. And at a certain point in your English learning, that's what you want, right? When you're first learning, you just want to make simple meanings. And then you want to make more complex meanings. And then you start getting into trouble. At that point, you need to start thinking about how to make your English beautiful. Because when it's beautiful or elegant, it's easier to understand, it's more pleasing to hear or read, and it allows you to emphasize your idea more clearly because there's balance. So saying something like, I like swimming more than to dive. Is this ungrammatical? Well, not really, because you have a subject, you have a verb, you have an object that you like, right? And objects can be gerund form, they can be noun form. And it is possible they can be infinitive. It's not typically what you would choose for an object or a subject, but it's possible. So this grammar is possible, but it's pretty ugly. It's not elegant. I like swimming more than to dive. It's a horrible sounding thing because it's confusing. I'm not sure if you like gerunds. I'm not sure if you like the name of this activity or the infinitive verb which expresses the action. So swimming is the name of the activity. So in the Olympics, let's watch swimming on TV. To dive is something you do. It's an action. So I'm not sure if you like the name of an action or doing the action itself. Your comparison is out of balance. It's out of parallelism, which makes your meaning also out of balance. So this kind of a sentence is grammatically correct, but grammar is not the only thing to think about, right? Once you understand the basics of grammar and you can perform them, the next thing to consider is how you're communicating your idea. Is the other person understanding exactly what you had in mind or not? So this kind of sentence loses its clarity. It loses its emphasis. Like if you have swimming and diving, well, those are gerunds, both, and they're clearly the names of activities or the names of sports. So I like swimming more than diving. Okay, let's watch the Olympics. Let's watch swimming, the name of that activity. To dive is something you would do. I like to dive. That's your action. So now we have clear comparison. Two activities from the Olympics, and you like one more than the other. Okay? That's a more clear comparison between two similar things. Okay? Not two apples and oranges or apples and sporting events. I like apples more than sporting events. That would be a strange comparison, right? We want to compare similar things. Okay, Maki Maki has an example of a poor sentence. Betty has intelligence, honesty, and she is funny. Betty has intelligence, honesty, and humor. 3 nouns. Right. Good. So Berta is asking, we can say to live is awesome or living is awesome. Both of those are fine. Both of those are grammatical. But here we're not really doing parallelism because here you have a complement. So awesome is an adjective. So we're using it as a complement to describe the subject. That's a different idea. That's not two similar elements linked by a linking verb. Wilson's asking, I'm Wilson from Ecuador. Yes, you are. Do always have to be parallelism, or can we make unparallelist? Is it right? Well, Wilson, I would say there's no rule about what you have to do or don't have to do. Really. Your goal with a language isn't to follow rules. Your goal shouldn't even be to pass a test, although that may be an important step in your life. The goal of a language is to be able to use it to communicate, right? And as I said, if you don't use parallelism, you have a risk of communicating poorly. Your idea may not be clear. Your comparison may not be clear. Or in Mackie's example, your list of characteristics might not be clear to someone, right? So this is a question of improving clarity. For you, I recommend parallelism. I recommend working on it. I recommend getting your students to improve it. It's something worth pointing out. Now, with beginner students, you got to be careful. It might be confusing, but because beginner students tend not to make complex sentences with lists or correlative conjunctions. But once you're dealing with intermediate learners, they really need to start learning about parallelism, because we don't want them to get into bad habits of using faulty parallels, right? Swimming and to dive. We don't want that. So it's better to develop habits early, but not too early to be confusing. So do we have to have parallelism? No, we don't have to have anything. But if your goal is to be a good communicator, yeah, work on parallelism, because it's useful for communicating clearly. And that's our goal. Let's see what else we have here after Wilson. Oh, we have Araceli is joining us. Hi, Araceli. We also have Nadim. Great. Okay, guys, we have about 10 minutes left before I've got to go off air. Do you have any... Oh, Chris? Okay, let's pop this up. You know what, Chris? You asked me about punctuation a couple episodes back, and I think I forgot to answer your question. Can you give me an example sentence of what you're talking about here? Because punctuation is a fairly large topic, and I'd be happy to explain it. I'll explain it next week when I have some more time available for that topic. I'll do a complete review of punctuation, in fact. But do you have an example for this sentence, Chris? Something we can pop on the board in 10 minutes? I can certainly help you with interjections, punctuations, commas, all that. But it's going to take some time to review comma use, punctuation. Chris, any ideas? Do you have an example you want to look at? Okay, punctuation and the use of and. Okay, good. That we can do quickly. So there's several ways to use and. One way is to join two subjects. Paul and Chris like pizza. Okay, we have a double subject. Paul and Chris together. That whole thing is the subject. When you do that, no comma. Okay? Or if you say, Chris likes pizza and sushi, double object, no comma. Okay? However, the challenge is when you have two clauses, right? Every sentence must have a subject and a verb. That's a clause. And it must be a complete idea. It must exist on its own independently. It should not rely on a paragraph. So if you're reading a paragraph, every sentence should be able to come out of that paragraph and be a complete idea. Okay? So for example, if I said, because the dog is old, if I told you that just like that, all by itself, does it make sense? Does it pass my famous bus stop test? Imagine you're on the street, you go to the bus stop, and you talk to a stranger. Excuse me, madam, because the dog is old. Does she look at you like, oh, I understand. I'm sorry to hear that. Or does she say, get away from me, weirdo? She's probably going to say, get away from me, weirdo, because that makes no sense. But a lot of students write this kind of sentence. They say things like, they're making a paragraph. They say, I love my dog, but I took him to the vet because the dog is old. Right? I love my dog, but I took him to the vet, period. And then they put this sentence. Now, you can kind of get the idea, right? But this still can't be like this. It needs to be connected to the first sentence, right? I love my dog, but I took him to the vet because the dog is old. This is not a sentence by itself. It's a dependent clause. It's dependent on the independent clause. So they have to be together. Okay. That's the problem with clauses. Now, I'm saying that because the idea of a complete idea is important. Chris loves pizza. Paul eats cheese. Two independent clauses, right? They pass the bus stop test. We can tell a stranger, excuse me, Chris loves pizza. Excuse me, Paul eats cheese. They might wonder why you're telling them that, but they understand the idea. Oh, Chris loves pizza. Oh, Paul eats cheese. Oh, that's interesting. They may not know why you're saying that, but they'll understand each idea. So these two sentences are independent clauses. They have a subject and a verb. And they're complete ideas on their own. So they're independent clauses. And we can put them in a paragraph like this. Chris loves pizza, period. Paul eats cheese, period. Okay, that's one way to express that idea. Now bear in mind too, these are two different complete ideas. What makes them different? Well, we have two different subjects, Chris and Paul, and we have two different verbs, loves and eats. And it's that relationship, subject and verb, that makes the idea. That's the core of the idea. That is the clause. And the clause is the building block of ideas. Try to remember that. It becomes important. What if we wanted to join them into one bigger idea? There seems to be some kind of connection, right? Pizza, cheese, two people. There seems to be a relationship here in the idea. Maybe we can put them together. Well, in some languages, you can just do this. Comma. Chris loves pizza, comma, Paul eats cheese. In some languages, not in English. Okay? This is not English. Why? Because a comma cannot connect to independent clauses. These are independent. They're different. They're different subjects and different verbs, so the comma can't connect them into a larger idea. You have a couple of choices. Put that old period there, and they'll be related by the overall paragraph. Okay, so that's possible. But if you really want to connect them, you have two other choices. You can put a comma with a conjunction. And what's a conjunction? Well, for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. These are what we call the fanboys. These are the coordinating conjunctions that we use. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And they work with comma. And now you can put two sentences together, two independent clauses. We can say, Chris loves pizza, comma, and Paul eats cheese. That's a good sentence. Now it's one big sentence, right? So maybe someone's asking, hey, those two people over there, what are they like? Oh, well, Chris loves pizza and Paul eats cheese. Okay? Or you could say Chris loves pizza, but Paul eats cheese. So they're different in a little way. Okay? So Chris, if you're going to connect independent clauses with a comma to continue the idea, right? The comma allows the idea to flow all the way to the end, where our period ends the overall sentence. You've got to have a conjunction there. And by the way, guys, words like also, these are not conjunctions. So don't try to connect two sentences with those. They work differently. We can talk about that in another day. But what if you really, really don't want to use a conjunction? There's a third way to punctuate. Okay? Let's say you really don't like conjunctions for some reason. I don't know. You've used them too much already in your paragraph. There's one other way. Look closely what I have on the board here. I have a period, and I told you that the period separates two independent clauses. And I told you that the comma allows the idea or the meaning to flow and continue until the end. What if we could combine this and this into one punctuation? We can. There's a punctuation that has a period and a comma. It's called a semicolon. And it does two jobs at the same time. The period tells us that we have two independent clauses. So it separates the grammar of two independent clauses. And the comma says, hey, I'm not done the idea yet. Okay? So it's doing two things at the same time. Now we have one big idea joined by two independent clauses. Well, Chris loves pizza. Paul eats cheese. They've combined into one larger idea. Again, the period plays the role of telling us there's another independent clause coming, right? And the comma says, yeah, but it's all part of one big idea. And this works for sentences like this too, because this one's a little strange. It's just a simple example to get you to understand this. But it often works like this. Chris loves pizza. However, she never eats it. Okay, we have clause number one, Chris loves. Chris is the subject, loves is the verb. Over here we have subject number two. It's the same subject, just with a pronoun. It's still Chris, but we have a different verb. Chris loves, she never eats. Okay, then we have this word. Now this word is not one of those first conjunctions, not a fanboy. It's what we call a transition word. It's really an adverb. So if we have an independent clause and an independent clause, what's the rule? The rule is no comma. Can't connect them with a comma. Even with this word here, the rule still apply. We can't do that. Even if we put that there, we can't. Why? Because over here we have an independent clause. So what do we need to do? We need to either start a new sentence with however, comma, Chris loves pizza, period. However, she never eats it. That's one choice. Okay, Chris loves pizza, period. However, comma, she never eats it. So this word allows us to transition to a new sentence while referring to the previous sentence, pointing backwards to it. There's another way. If you really want to combine the whole thing, use the semicolon. Chris loves pizza. However, and now this is still part of the same sentence. However, comma, she never eats it. Chris loves pizza. So that independent clause is finished, but the comma says, keep going. Right? The idea doesn't end here. Just the grammar of an independent clause ends, because now I'm going to contrast the idea. However, she never eats it. Now we have one long idea, two independent clauses with a contrasting adverb, or you might want to say subordinating conjunction. So, Chris, we're almost out of time. So I'm going to leave it there, but perhaps what we need to do is prepare an entire show for a punctuation episode. I'm happy to do that. If other people want to learn more about punctuation, do you guys? And remember, punctuation is primarily for writing because it's a visual thing. It's something you see. Okay, so Chris says, now I understand. In Dutch, we never use a comma before and. So again, when you have two subjects like Chris and Paul, no comma. Two objects like Chris loves pizza and sushi, no comma. But if you're joining independent clauses with and or but or for any of the fanboys, you absolutely need a comma. I think the only time you don't need a comma, and you'll probably see this in professional writing like magazines or books, is when the two clauses are really tiny. Kind of like my examples, because if they're so small, it's easy to see the balance. It's easy to see the two clauses. So sometimes you might see the comma dropped. But for you learners, it's a good habit. Comma, conjunction. Okay? But just remember, independent clause cannot be joined by a comma alone. Comma needs a conjunction. Okay, so Wilson says punctuation is very important. So maybe we should do a whole episode of punctuation, a whole show. Okay, I'll plan for that. I'm going to stop with the questions now, guys, and wrap up. But I want to tell you something really kind of cool. Next week, I think, first week of September. Is that next week, guys? Or is that next week? Let me see the calendar. Where the heck are we? I don't even know what day it is. Yeah, guys, next show, next week, will mark 1 year of Hardboiled English Live. 1 year. 1 year ago, I started streaming Hardboiled English Live. So next week, next show is going to be our 1 year anniversary. In that time, I've streamed 50 episodes. 50 episodes of this every week, except for a couple. And there are 3 episodes that I chose not to put in the archive on the YouTube channel. If you go to the YouTube channel, you can see right now there are 47 episodes. 3 of them broadcast with really poor image quality. It really ruined the show. So I haven't archived those. So even though the number we're at now, this is show 48, it's actually show 50, right? I had to scrap a couple of extras. So next week is our 1 year anniversary show. So next week, I'm going to have a couple of special guests to celebrate the show. So I hope you please join us next week. It's going to be a little bit of a party show. And we're going to bring a couple of guests on who have contributed to the show in the past and are very important for me in the development of the show. But it will also be a chance for me to thank you, because this show is only possible. In fact, it's only enjoyable because of you guys. If I stand here in my studio looking at my whiteboard, it's not exactly fun. But if I'm saying something or explaining something that helps you guys, then it's fun. Then I feel wonderful about what I'm doing. And in this past year, I've managed to meet all of you guys from so many different countries. It's fantastic. It really is an amazing experience to do this show. So, lots of new things will happen in the autumn, but next week we'll celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Hardboiled English Live and the 51st episode, 51st show. So I hope you'll join me then and help me celebrate this. And we'll have some fun, maybe some music and some special guests. Thank you, Uncle Kati. Thank you, Wako. Okay, so I'm going to go down the list, guys, and just thank all of you for joining the show tonight. But in the meantime, I just want to remind you, go to Hardboiled English YouTube channel. Please subscribe so you get all the recordings and episodes. And check out some of the old episodes and see how the show has grown and changed. Tonight, we had Tirath with us, Chris with us, Hossein from Pakistan, Wilson from Ecuador, Jay from Korea, Xuan from Vietnam, Ohidul from Singapore, originally from Bangladesh. We have Maria from Brazil, Maria Cristina. We have Shoyon from Bangladesh. Rosangela from Brazil. Marco, Maki, Luisa, Garrett, Tapan, Katongo. I still don't know what country you're watching from, Katongo. Be nice to know. We had Berta, Wilson, Rega Arcieli. We had Nadim. We had Uncle Kati, and Jasmine from the US. Thanks for joining, Jasmine. We have Ayaz Khan joining us from Pakistan. Thank you. And who? Roni. Roni joined us. Cesar Luis from Venezuela. Cesar Luis, nice to see your name pop up here. We're just finishing the show. We had Chieko Kitaoka. I'm assuming you're from Japan, Chieko. If you are, thank you for joining us. Anyone else I miss? Ortanza Alexia, thank you for joining us tonight. I can't remember what country you're from. Mexico? I can't remember. Perhaps you can refresh my memory. Thank you again, guys, for joining the show. You are what makes this possible. What I'd like you guys to think about doing, though, is helping me. I do this show every week for you guys, and it does take a lot of work. So what I'd really like as we go into the autumn together is tell your friends about this show, right? Share links to the YouTube channel where these shows are held. Help me promote this. I want more and more viewers to watch this, because if we get enough viewers watching the show, we can monetize it, right? And money will help me produce this show, because it does cost money to run this show. So I'm not going to ask you guys for money. What I would like you to do is help me promote it. Get more viewers to watch it. Tell your friends. Share this on your social media. Let's make Hardboiled English Live the most successful live stream in the education sphere. Okay? Chieko Kitaoka is from Japan. Great. And Ortanza is from Romania. Ortanza, you know what? My grandmother was from Romania. My family goes back in two directions. It goes to Britain and Ireland, and it goes to Romania and Hungary. My grandmother was from Romania. So I have a nice connection to Romania. Okay, guys, that's all the time we have. My camera is about to explode, and I'm getting a little hungry, to be honest with you. Thank you for joining the show, everybody. So next week is our 1-year anniversary show. I'm going to try and make it a special show. Might even go a little longer. We'll have some guests, some music, and some fun. Join me then to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Hardboiled English Live. Watch some other episodes on the YouTube channel. I recommend our New Year show or our Christmas show. We had lots of guests on those shows. So join me next week, guys. Until then, I want you to stay safe. I want you to keep learning English. Keep thinking of questions to bring to the show. And as always, be cool.